What is going on to all my you fans out there, and welcome back to the channel. We are back discussing this fourth season, part 2, episode 8, titled Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? An episode where we see the true darkness of Joe as Nadia tries to help Marianne escape. A lot to go over in today's breakdown, but before we get into it, let me know your thoughts on this 8th episode in the comments below. What did you all think about seeing the true darkness that Joe displayed in this episode, and what is the plan that Nadia is going to come up with to help Marianne escape and hopefully get reunited with her daughter? Also, share your predictions and your theories of what you all hope to see in the final 2 episodes of this second part. And if you all enjoyed today's breakdown, consider hitting that like button as well as sharing this video. A lot to go over in this 8th episode. Full spoilers ahead. Now, for those that aren't too familiar with this title, it comes from Joyce Carol Oates in a form of short stories, Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? As it tells the story of this young lady's journey to find her own identity. Along the way, she uses her beauty to create in her mind a feeling of maturity, which ultimately becomes her downfall. Now, interestingly enough, I think that there's connections with that title and paralleling to what's going on with Joe, as he has created these stories in his head, and it might end up being his downfall. So I think it's a very effective way to use this title, as we open the episode with a flashback of hearing Marianne's voiceover as she's in Paris with her daughter right before she has to go to the art fair, and we see what really happened to her from her perspective of when Joe took her. As we cut to an apartment where Joe is holding her as he studies a video of Reese, as we haven't seen this side of Joe in a very long time. I mean, he is cold, he is calculus, and he's really not present, as this reminds us all as an audience of how evil and how dangerous Joe really is. And just taking a brief moment here, honestly, this show has done such a masterful job of tricking us with Joe's charm, because we have sometimes forgot that he is the real villain of the series. Now, we get a bit of insight on the question I posed in my last video. Why did Joe choose Reese? As Joe tells Marianne that Reese used to have a dark past, but as time went by, he made a change. And within that change, he became everyone's favorite hero, and people want him to run for mayor, and that inspired Joe. So it's starting to make sense on why Joe would choose someone like this, someone that had a dark past, but all of a sudden made a needed change, and now that change has helped him become the hero. And I think it's safe to say that Joe wants to do the same thing. As Joe continues to stalk up and study up on Reese and keep Marianne hostage, we see her attempt to escape before being kept in his cage, but she ultimately fails and breaks her arm in the process. In this moment, as she pleads with Joe to set her free, we see Joe completely blanking out and talking to himself and bangs his head against the cage as he reveals that he's not Joe, and he has this creepy, dark, sinister smile on his face. Listen, I think Joe is too far gone to ever make a return to some type of normalcy. There's even the moment where we see Joe dropping off food and also painkillers to maybe help out her healing her arm, and a lot of us might think, well, maybe there's a little bit of kindness left in Joe. I don't think so. I think we're seeing the dark side of Joe really taking over, and I think that that gesture was really kind of a dark gesture, because Joe knows that she used to be a drug addict and she would probably relapse if she took those pills. So I think this is just showing us an example of how dark and how far gone he is from being that nice Joe that we thought he was at one point. Now, as this is happening, this story is kind of being told from the perspective of Marianne as she's reading this Nightingale story to her daughter. And personally, as we get this non-linear storytelling to convey her emotions, it really worked for me. But let me know in the comments what you all thought of the storytelling method. See her trying to kill Joe with kindness, only for whatever this persona that he's created inside of his head tells her that Joe is not here and that she's being kept here until he finally comes back to kill her. I'm gonna tell y'all something right now. I was so impressed by these performances by both actors. This episode was just so great for me so far. Let me know where you all were at in this point in the episode, as we get this montage of a day after day where we see her doing the same routine with her broken arm, but she's not broken, as she fights to stay strong to see her daughter again. But she starts to realize that the food is running low, and she ultimately snaps and she starts to lose it, which is understandable, as it's in this moment that Nadia finds her from the last episode. Cut to Joe, who's told by his made-up version of Reese that this has been brewing for a long time in his head. Now, we see a shift in the Reese made-up version has kind of changed as he's trying to do something for Joe in this episode, which is help him remember that he hasn't been checking in on Marianne. Now, Joe, who is just in full denial, he doesn't think he's crazy. He actually tries to prove it to himself as he replays his hidden camera footage, only showing that he was talking to himself when he met with Reese last. And then we get the flashback of all the times in part 1 of him talking to himself and not Reese. The only time Reese was actually present is when he was at the funeral, when he acknowledged Joe was there, only to just nod at him. And also every time he was on camera, seeing on the television perspective, that was the real version of Reese. And every other time was just simply made up in Joe's head. As we see Joe trying to justify the killings of what he did in the first half of this season. So I guess it's safe to say that my second killer theories can be thrown out of the window, as it's time for Joe to know who he really is in order to find Marianne. Back to Nadia and Marianne. Nadia is being told by Marianne to not get the police involved because Joe will find a way out. And I can't lie, I don't think that's the best decision, but she does make a point that every time Joe gets involved with the police, he finds a way to trick them out of the situation every single time. Now, the plan is for Nadia to return soon with an actual plan, but meanwhile, she must not get caught by Joe. Marianne seems to hope that this plan will work. We get this brief scene in which we see Kate and Joe having a conversation discussing Adam and Phoebe's engagement party as we cut to Nadia in class with Joe, and she's kind of making it abundantly clear that there's something that's throwing her off, and we see that the Reese actually notices this. But Joe believes that this is just an issue that she's having with her boyfriend, and I think, again, Nadia has become one of my favorite characters as this second part is going on because she's so smart in these situations. As we cut to seeing Kate trying to convince Phoebe to forget about this engagement party and seek out the help that she needs, it was in this scene that it finally hit me as far as the question I've been asking: what is the importance of Phoebe and Adam? Don't get me wrong, I enjoy these characters. They bring a lot of levity into this dark show sometimes, but a lot of times when we cut to them, it kind of feels unnecessary. But I'm looking at Phoebe here, taking a step back and looking at this character. She's a prime example of what happens when we suppress our emotions and our feelings and we create these fairy tales that everything is fine by focusing on others and not helping ourselves. And she's doing the same thing with Adam. She's trying to fix him and trying to help him through his problems. And we can parallel that to what's going on with Joe. Joe is a broken individual, but he'll rather ignore his mental health issues and he inserts himself in everyone else's lives. So I think that, and plus I think that there will be some more meat to what's going on with Phoebe and Adam, and I wouldn't be surprised if Adam ends up being killed by Joe. But the kind of deeper meaning of this character is the idea of what happens when you ignore your true issues and trying to help other people, you forget to help yourself. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below, or if you think there's a different point of that particular plot, let's talk about that in the comment section. Back with Joe, who's torn his apartment to pieces in order to find a clue of where he can find Marianne, but has no luck, as Reese gives him a tip, which is looking into his Jekyll and Hyde book, which I think is hilarious, where we see Nadia has placed a key back there, but also he finds the notes that he took, obsessing over Reese, and we get the return of the box that we see for the first time this season with all his handy-dandy souvenirs, but more importantly, he finds a map with the location of Marianne. We end this episode with Joe getting closer and warmer to the location, as Nadia has also arrived as promised. Now, the plan that Nadia comes up with isn't revealed to us as an audience, as we see Joe slowly starting to remember what he's done as he enters the lair and we fade to black. So what is this plan that Nadia has come up with, and will she manage to leave or hide before Joe comes downstairs? Now, will Kate stop this marriage from happening by accidentally sending Joe to kill Adam? Can't forget about Tom. Will he help Joe with covering up all his problems after he kept his promise and killing the actual Reese? Now, to me, this was another great episode and some really great performances by Penn Badgley as well as Tati Gabrielle. This second part, in my opinion, has already been better than the first part, but it's time for you all to share your opinion in the comment section. What did you think about this 8th episode? The darkness that was displayed from Joe in this episode? What will the plan be that Nadia and Marianne has come up with, and where will Marianne end up dying or end up getting reunited met with a daughter. Let's talk about your thoughts and your theories and your predictions of what you all hope to see in episode 9 and 10. Let's have those conversations in the comments. And before you all leave this video, I want to thank you for supporting these videos and watching it up to this point. Just a friendly reminder, if you enjoyed the breakdown, to hit the thumbs up button, share this review, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. As you all can see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out my review for the next episode. Check out my series of reviews for you. You all have been great, and we'll see you on the next breakdown.